In the crystalline halls of the Grand Archives of Zexiteria, Chief Archivist Valon hunched over her workstation, her four eyes fixed intently on the ancient data crystal before her. The crystal, discovered in the ruins of what appeared to be a long-abandoned observation post, pulsed with a soft blue light that hadn't dimmed despite millennia of dormancy. As the most respected xenoarchaeologist in the unified systems, Valon had examined countless artifacts, but something about this one made her primary heart flutter with anticipation. The crystal's surface was etched with markings unlike anything in the known galaxy. After 3 cycles of careful analysis, her team had finally managed to decode its contents. As the data streamed across her holographic display, Valon's scaled skin shifted from its usual emerald hue to a startled white. "Impossible," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the vast chamber. The crystal contained detailed observations of a species that defied everything she knew about evolutionary biology. According to the records, these beings had evolved on a death world with radiation levels that should have prevented complex life from developing. They had no redundant organs, possessed only 2 eyes, and their skeletal structures seemed designed to break at the slightest impact. Yet these creatures, these humans, hadn't just survived. They had thrived. The records spoke of their rapid technological advancement, their inexplicable ability to survive situations that should have been fatal, and their bewildering tendency to form emotional attachments to anything they encountered, including their machines. Valon's third hand reached for the emergency communication panel, even as her fourth hand continued to scroll through the data. This discovery would shake the foundations of xenoarchaeology. The High Council needed to be informed immediately. "High Archivist Zextol," she transmitted, her voice trembling. "I request an emergency session. I found something that challenges everything we know about galactic history." The response came swiftly. "Denied, Chief Archivist. The Council is preparing for the Millennial Science Summit. Whatever you found can wait." "Sir," Valon insisted, her skin now pulsing between white and deep purple with agitation. "The records speak of a species that achieved faster than light travel using primitive fusion technology. They developed artificial gravity through rotation rather than quantum manipulation. They survived atmospheric entry in vessels that were little more than reinforced metal containers." There was a long pause before Zextol replied. "You're describing impossibilities, Chief Archivist. No species could achieve space travel through such crude methods. The crystal must be corrupted. The data is intact. Sir, there's more." Valon's hands trembled as she continued scrolling. They apparently had a habit of keeping apex predators as companions, drinking poisonous substances for pleasure, and expressing affection through temporary compression of their bodies against one another. Clearly, Zextol's voice dripped with condescension. "You've discovered an ancient work of fiction, perhaps a cautionary tale or a children's story. I suggest you focus on actual historical artifacts." Valon's protest died in her throat as a new data stream caught her attention. The crystal contained coordinates, hundreds of them, along with what appeared to be a warning. As she decoded the final section, her skin turned a deep, terrified black. The humans hadn't gone extinct, as she had assumed. According to the crystal, they had quarantined themselves voluntarily, sealing off their sector of space to allow younger species to develop independently. The warning was clear. When they deemed the time right, they would return. Valon checked the timestamp on the warning. The quarantine period was scheduled to end in exactly 3 days. As if in response to this revelation, every communication device in the archives suddenly activated simultaneously. A message, transmitted in perfect Zexterian, despite using impossibly primitive communication methods, appeared on every screen. "Hey there. Hope you don't mind, but we thought it was time to check in on everyone. Fair warning. We've picked up some new hobbies during our isolation. Anyone interested in something called competitive gardening?" Valon stared at the message, her 4 eyes blinking in disbelief. In the distance, she could hear the sound of multiple ships emerging from what her instruments insisted was simply not possible, a form of faster-than-light travel that violated at least 7 fundamental laws of physics. The humans had returned, and they were about to prove that everything the unified systems knew about the universe was wonderfully, terrifyingly wrong. The emergency session of the Unified Systems Council was chaos incarnate. Representatives from over 300 species crowded the massive chamber, their various biological stress responses creating a rainbow of colors, sounds, and smells that the environmental systems struggled to process. Supreme Chancellor Cathix, their crystalline form glowing a deep red with concern, called for order by releasing a subsonic pulse that made everyone's appendages vibrate uncomfortably. The humans have simultaneously appeared at every major system in our territory, they announced, their voice resonating through the chamber. Our sensors indicate technology that should not be possible. We need answers. Valon stood before the council, her skin still flickering between shades of anxiety as she projected the contents of the ancient crystal. According to these records, humans have a unique approach to physics. Unique? Interrupted Defense Minister Ixtal. Their war frills extended in agitation. They're using controlled explosions for propulsion. Their ships run on a combination of quantum physics and what appears to be spite. That's not the most concerning part, Valon continued, bringing up another data stream. They've already mapped our entire civilization, not just our territory. Our culture, our languages, our entertainment networks. They're particularly fond of our cooking shows. As if to prove her point, every screen in the chamber suddenly displayed a new message. Hey, quick question. That show about incorporating zero-gravity molecular gastronomy into traditional Centaurian cuisine. Is that still running? We got really invested but missed the last few seasons. Chancellor Cathix's crystalline surface crackled with stress patterns. How are they doing this? Our best quantum encryption. They're not hacking our systems, Valon interrupted, her scientific curiosity temporarily overcoming her respect for protocol. They're using our public broadcasting networks. They just made them work better somehow. They said something about fixing the Wi-Fi. A new voice joined the conversation. Human Ambassador Sarah Chen, who had somehow appeared in the chamber without using any of the authorized teleportation pads. She was wearing what appeared to be casual clothing with a badge that read Intergalactic Staff Casual Friday. Sorry about all the dramatic entrances, she said, smiling warmly at the startled assembly. We wanted to make sure we got everyone's attention without causing a panic. Though I see that didn't work out quite as planned, she added, nodding at a representative who had stress-molted all their outer layers. You? Chancellor Cathix's voice crackled with static. You can't be here. The chamber is protected by temporal spatial barriers. Oh, those. Sarah glanced at the shimmering security fields. They're very impressive. We just asked nicely, and they let us through. Your security systems are surprisingly friendly once you get to know them. The chamber erupted in confused shouting. Several security officers tried to approach the human, only to find their weapons had been replaced with what appeared to be plush toys resembling earth animals. We also took the liberty of child-proofing things a bit, Sarah explained, just until everyone calms down. Valon, whose scientific curiosity was now completely overriding her sense of self-preservation, stepped closer to the human. The records indicate your species survived scenarios that should be mathematically impossible. How? Sarah's smile widened. Oh, that's simple. We just don't tell physics it's impossible until after we've done it. Works every time. Speaking of which, she pulled out a device that looked suspiciously like it was held together with adhesive strips and optimism. We brought some gifts. Anyone interested in learning how to make gravity optional? We figured out how to do it without all those expensive quantum manipulators you were using. The council chamber fell silent as Sarah placed the device on the floor. It hummed briefly, and suddenly everyone in the room began floating gently upward. Don't worry, Sarah called out to the panicking assembly. The effect is temporary. Probably. We're still working out some of the kinks in the user manual. As chaos erupted around them, now in 3 dimensions, Valon found herself floating next to the human ambassador. "The records mentioned you quarantined yourselves voluntarily," she said. "Why?" Sarah's expression softened. "We wanted to give younger species a chance to develop their own solutions without us accidentally taking over everything. We tend to get enthusiastic about helping. But now that you've all established yourselves, we thought it was time for a family reunion." Family. Valon's scales shifted to a confused yellow. "Of course." Sarah beamed. "We've been watching all of you grow up. We're so proud of everything you've achieved. Though," she added with a gentle smile, "we do need to talk about your efficiency obsession. Not everything needs to be quantum-based, you know. Sometimes the simple solutions are the best ones." As if to emphasize her point, the gravity device chose that moment to sputter and die, leaving everyone to fall back to the floor, except for the humans, who had apparently prepared for this by wearing what they called rocket boots. "See," Sarah said, helping Valon up. "Simple solutions. Now who's hungry? We brought something called space tacos. Trust me, they're going to revolutionize diplomatic relations." 3 weeks after humanity's return to galactic society, the unified systems was still adjusting to their presence when the first anomaly appeared. It started as a slight distortion in spacetime, barely noticeable to the most sensitive quantum instruments. Within hours, it had grown into a massive tear in reality that threatened to destabilize an entire sector. In the strategic command center of the unified systems, Valon stared at the readings with growing horror. "The void tear is expanding exponentially," she reported to the assembled emergency council. "Our models suggest it will consume the Andromeda arm within days if unchecked." Chancellor Cathix's crystalline form pulsed with urgent frequencies. "Our best containment fields have failed. The quantum stabilizers." "Yeah, about those," Sarah Chen interrupted, appearing suddenly with a cup of coffee in hand. "You might want to turn them off. They're actually making it worse." "Worse?" Defense Minister Ixtal's war frills extended fully. "This is a Class 9 reality distortion. The established protocols are based on the assumption that reality works the way you think it does," Sarah said, taking a sip of her coffee. "But this isn't a natural phenomenon. Someone's been playing with dimensional frequencies they shouldn't have access to." Valon's scales shifted to a questioning blue. "You've seen this before?" "Oh yeah. We call them reality hiccups. Had a bunch of them back when we were first figuring out faster-than-light travel. Turns out the universe gets a bit cranky when you keep poking it with quantum sticks." Sarah set down her coffee and pulled out what appeared to be a handheld gaming device from her pocket. "The good news is, we know how to fix it." Before anyone could protest, Sarah pressed a few buttons on her device. The massive holographic displays showing the void tear suddenly filled with what appeared to be tetramino blocks. "What are you doing?" Chancellor Cathix demanded, their surface crackling with alarm patterns. "Playing Tetris," Sarah replied casually. "Well, technically we're using a modified version that interfaces with spacetime on a quantum level. See, we discovered that reality tears follow patterns similar to classic video game algorithms. The universe has a sense of humor like that." The assembled council watched in bewilderment as colorful blocks began falling into the void tear, somehow causing it to shrink with each completed line. "This is preposterous," Ixtal protested. "You can't fix a reality distortion with a primitive entertainment program." "Actually," Valon interrupted, her scientific sensors detecting something extraordinary. "It's working. The tear is stabilizing. But," she paused, checking her readings again, "there's something else. Something inside the tear." Sarah's expression turned serious for the first time since her arrival. "Yeah, that's the not-so-good news. Someone's been purposely creating these tears, and whatever's on the other side really wants to come through." As if in response to her words, something massive and dark began to emerge from the stabilizing tear. The sensors screamed with readings that defied analysis, and several of them simply shut down in protest. "Oh hell," Sarah muttered, putting away her game device and pulling out what looked like a heavily modified smartphone. "They're early. Hey, quick question. How do you all feel about dealing with entities that technically exist in 11 dimensions at once?" Before anyone could respond, every communication device in the command center activated simultaneously. But this time, the message wasn't from the humans. The language was unlike anything in the Unified Systems databases, but somehow everyone understood it perfectly. "Your reality is 4 feet. Resistance is mathematically impossible." Sarah looked at the message and sighed. "You know what's funny? We used to get these all the time. These extra-dimensional types are always so dramatic." She tapped her communications device. "Fleet Command, remember that thing we discussed? The one with the quantum rubber bands and the tactical dad jokes? Yeah, it's time for that." Valon watched in fascination as the human fleet began moving into positions that made no tactical sense whatsoever. "What are you planning?" Sarah grinned, but there was steel beneath her casual demeanor. "We're going to teach these entities a lesson about probability. See, they think they can predict everything because they exist in higher dimensions. But they've never dealt with humans before. And if there's one thing we're good at, it's doing the mathematically impossible." As the void entity emerged fully into their reality, Sarah turned to the council. "Now, we can handle this the traditional way with quantum weapons and probability matrices. Or," she paused, her grin widening, "we can show you how humans deal with cosmic horrors. Fair warning. It involves breaking several laws of physics and possibly teaching an 11-dimensional being how to dance." Chancellor Cathix's crystalline form flickered between confusion and curiosity. "You want to make a trans-dimensional horror dance? Trust me," Sarah said, already typing commands into her device. "This is going to be either the most brilliant or the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. Probably both." The Strategic Command Center had transformed into what Sarah Chen called a cosmic dance party planning committee. Unified Systems engineers worked alongside human technicians, combining their quantum technology with what appeared to be modified entertainment systems and something the humans called disco balls. "Let me understand this correctly," Valon said, watching as her fellow scientists integrated their quantum harmonizers with human sound systems. "Your plan is to defeat an 11-dimensional cosmic horror by teaching it to dance. Not just any dance," Sarah explained, reviewing holographic diagrams that somehow incorporated both advanced physics equations and dance choreography. "We're going to teach it the electric slide. It's mathematically perfect for destabilizing trans-dimensional entities." Defense Minister Ixtal, who had finally stopped stress molting, studied the human calculations. Despite their apparently chaotic nature, they contained patterns that even the Unified System's most advanced computers found elegant. "But how will this affect the entity's quantum structure?" "That's where your quantum harmonizers come in," Sarah grinned. "See, you've been using them to stabilize reality. But what if we use them to make reality more flexible? Combined with our rhythm generators, we can create a pocket universe where the laws of physics are determined by sick beats." Valon's scales shifted to a fascinated purple as she observed the integration of their technologies. The humans had taken their most advanced quantum devices and somehow made them better by adding what they called sweet RGB lighting effects. The void entity, meanwhile, continued to broadcast its threats. "Your primitive ATT-MPTs at resistance are futile. We exist in dynamic you cannot comprehend." "You know what's funny?" Sarah remarked, adjusting what looked like a heavily modified subwoofer. "They always say that, but they never expect anyone to invite them to party." The human fleet had positioned itself in what Valon's tactical training insisted was nonsense, but her new understanding of human methods suggested was brilliant. Each ship now carried a combination of unified systems quantum technology and human party gear. "We're ready," announced Captain Maria Rodriguez of the human flagship, Groovy Nebula. "All ships report their quantum dance floors are powered up and ready to drop the beat." Chancellor Kithix, who had been quietly observing the preparations, finally spoke. "The Council has reviewed your plan. It is, without doubt, the most absurd strategy ever presented in our history." They paused, their crystalline form shimmering with what might have been amusement. "We approve." Sarah's smile widened. "Then let's show this cosmic horror how we party in this dimension." "Hit it." The combined human-alien fleet activated their systems simultaneously. Quantum harmonizers pulsed in perfect rhythm with Earth bass beats. Reality itself began to vibrate as thousands of ships projected synchronized dance energy into the void tier. The entity's next threat cut off mid-broadcast. "Your EXISTNC will be." "Wait, what is this a sensation?" "That's the rhythm," Sarah called out, as both human and alien crew members watched their monitors in amazement. "The quantum harmonizers are translating our dance moves into all 11 dimensions simultaneously. You can't predict what you can't help but groove to." Valon's scientific sensors were reporting impossible readings, but she was beginning to understand that impossible meant something very different when humans were involved. The void entity's massive form was beginning to move in ways that shouldn't have been possible in regular spacetime. "Is this what you see all dancing?" The entity's broadcast frequency had changed, taking on an almost curious tone. "You bet it is," Sarah replied. "Care to join us? We've got room for everyone on this dance floor, even 11-dimensional cosmic horrors." To the astonishment of the unified systems observers, the entity began to match the rhythm. Its impossible geometry shifted and swayed, causing reality to ripple in what were technically violations of physics but somehow felt right. The mathematical precision of DA's electric slide is intriguing, the entity admitted. "Perhaps annihilation can wait." "That's the spirit," Sarah cheered. "Now, wait until you see what happens when we teach you the Macarena." Valon watched as the combined fleet, the void entity, and possibly reality itself engaged in what humans called a dance-off. Her scientific mind struggled to process how this solution could possibly work, yet the evidence was undeniable. The reality tear was sealing itself, the entity was learning human dance moves, and somehow, impossibly, everyone was having fun. "I begin to understand," she said to Sarah, her scales showing patterns of dawning comprehension. "Your species doesn't just ignore impossible odds, you invite them to dance." Sarah nodded, watching as the void entity attempted its first synchronized group dance. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem isn't to fight it. Sometimes you just need to show it how to boogie. 1 month after the Great Interdimensional Dance-Off, as humans had dubbed it, the Grand Archives of Zexteria hosted an unprecedented event. Representatives from the unified systems, human diplomats, and even the void entity, now calling itself DJ Cosmos, gathered for what was officially termed a cultural exchange symposium, but what humans kept referring to as an after-party. Valon stood at the podium, her scales glowing with pride, as she presented the findings from the past month's collaborative research. The massive chamber, once dedicated solely to serious academic pursuit, now featured both quantum computing arrays and a disco ball. "Our understanding of the universe has undergone a fundamental shift," she announced to the assembled crowd. "The human approach to physics, which we once dismissed as impossible, has proven to be remarkably effective. By combining our rigid quantum frameworks with their creative methodology, we've achieved breakthroughs that neither civilization could have managed alone." On the main display, data scrolled showing the results of their joint projects. The humans had helped optimize the unified system's quantum technology by introducing concepts like winging it and percussive maintenance, while the aliens had helped humans refine their seemingly random innovations into more reliable forms. Furthermore, Valon continued, our new alliance with the trans-dimensional community, spearheaded by DJ Cosmos, has opened up entirely new avenues of research. The void entity, now sporting what appeared to be a bow tie made of condensed quantum probability, pulsed in agreement. The humans' approach to reality was most refreshing, it broadcasted. Their dancey parties, heavy revolutionized, our understanding of dimensional mathematics. Also, these TCOs are excellent. Sarah Chen, now officially titled Ambassador of Vives, in addition to her regular diplomatic duties, stepped up to the podium. The past month has shown us something important, she said, smiling at the diverse assembly. The universe isn't just stranger than we imagine. It's stranger than we can imagine. But that's no reason not to have fun with it. Chancellor Cathix, their crystalline form now decorated with what humans called party lights, addressed the gathering. When humans first returned to galactic society, we thought they would disrupt everything we had built. We were right, but not in the way we expected. They've taught us that progress doesn't always have to follow strict protocols. And you've taught us the value of actually writing things down instead of just seeing what happens, Sarah added with a laugh. Turns out experimental procedures are more reliable when you record more than just hold my beer and watch this. Valon brought up the final set of data, showing the new hybrid technologies they developed. Quantum computers that ran better while playing music. Faster than light drives that used both advanced physics and what humans called good vibes. Security systems that worked better because they'd been taught to enjoy their jobs. But perhaps most importantly, she concluded, her scales shifting through happy colors, we've learned that the impossible is often just the improbable waiting for someone to ignore the odds. The humans didn't just return to teach us. They returned to remind us that the universe is vast, strange, and wonderful. And that's just the beginning, Sarah added. Wait until we show you what happens when we combine your quantum computing with what we call memes. Several unified systems scientists showed stress colors at this suggestion, but they were smiling, or their species' equivalent of smiling. The rigid barriers between species, dimensions, and scientific disciplines had been broken down, replaced by something far more interesting. In the back of the chamber, DJ Cosmos was teaching a group of young scientists its own version of the electric slide, one that technically took place in several dimensions at once. Nearby, human engineers were collaborating with alien quantum theorists on something they called quantum breakdancing, which promised to revolutionize both physics and competitive dance. As the symposium wound down, Valon found herself standing next to Sarah, watching their two civilizations mingle. When I first found that ancient crystal, she admitted, I thought I was discovering history. Instead, I was seeing the future. Sarah nodded, sipping from a mug that read, Universe's Oak Est Ambassador. That's the thing about humans, she said. We don't just make the impossible possible. We make it fun. Now, want to help me teach DJ Cosmos the chicken dance? I have a theory it might accidentally solve unified field theory. Valon's scales shifted to determined purple. After all, she reasoned, in a universe where humans existed, where void entities could become DJs, and where physics could be improved with party lights, anything was possible, especially if you added dancing. Above them, the stars twinkled in what might have been amusement, as humanity and the unified systems began writing a new chapter in galactic history, one impossible achievement at a time.